The stars were quiet that night. Captain Ryan Holt sat alone in the command chair of his half-broken ship, the Resolute. The screens around him flickered with static, showing the scars of the last battle. Outside the window, the blackness of space stretched forever, endless and cold. He rubbed his tired eyes. His crew was gone, most killed when the Zorath fleet ambushed them near the edge of the Cane Belt. Only the silent hum of dying engines remained to keep him company. He should have been dead too. But somehow the universe decided to let him live a little longer. Then it came, a weak, broken signal echoing through the ship's comms. Help. Any vessel. Please. Ryan frowned and leaned closer. It wasn't a human frequency. It was alien. Zorath. The same species that had destroyed his crew. The same species whose ships turned Earth's colonies into ash. He almost turned it off. He wanted to, but something inside him wouldn't let him. He sighed deeply. Computer, trace the source. A few seconds later, the coordinates appeared. Somewhere on a nearby moon, a barren rock covered in dust and shadow. The signal was faint but still alive. He stared at it for a long time. Then quietly he said to himself, "All right, let's see who's still breathing." The moon's surface was harsh and gray. His boots crunched against the dust as he walked toward the crashed ship. The hull was torn open like a wound. Pieces of glowing metal scattered around like shattered bones. The symbol of the Zorath Empire was burned into the side, an elegant mark of wings and flame. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and sparks. Ryan's helmet light flickered over twisted corridors, melted doors, and alien bodies frozen in their final moments. He swallowed hard. War made monsters out of everyone. Then he heard it, a faint cough. He moved toward the sound, stepping over debris and broken armor. In the far corner, trapped beneath a collapsed beam, lay a figure. Tall, slender, glowing faintly blue beneath the dust. Her skin shimmered like silver glass. Her armor was cracked, her breathing shallow. I Zorathian, one of the enemy. She opened her eyes as he approached, and for the first time in his life, Ryan saw what Zorath eyes truly looked like. Not the glowing pits of monsters he had been told about, but soft, bright, almost human. Her gaze sharpened when she realized who he was. "A human," she hissed weakly, her voice trembling. "Get away," he knelt beside her. "You're hurt." "Don't touch me," she said sharply, struggling to move, but pain froze her in place. Ryan studied the wreckage pinning her legs. Her ship's metal beam had crushed the lower part of her armor. If he didn't help, she'd bleed out within minutes. "Stay still," he said, reaching for his cutter. She glared at him. "I said don't." The beam snapped under the plasma blade's heat. Ryan ignored her protests and pulled it away carefully. Her leg was bleeding dark, shimmering fluid that didn't look like blood at all. "You're lucky," he said. "Could have lost it." "I told you not to touch me, human," she shouted, voice echoing off the broken walls. Ryan just looked at her. For a moment he saw not an alien, not an enemy, but someone alone and dying on a cold moon. "Sorry," he said softly, slipping his arms under her weight. Too late for that. Her body tensed in his arms, but she was too weak to resist. Her head fell against his shoulder as he carried her out of the wreck. The walk back to his ship felt longer than it was. She was heavier than she looked, her armor pressing cold against his chest. He could feel her breath, uneven, fading. "Why?" she whispered, her voice faint. "Why save me?" He looked up at the sky, at the stars above them. "Because you called for help." Her laugh was bitter. "Your kind kills mine." "Yeah," he said quietly. "And yours kills mine. Doesn't mean I have to act like them." She didn't answer. Her eyes drifted shut. Ryan walked faster. When he reached the Resolute, he placed her gently on the medbay table. The ship's AI scanned her automatically, struggling to identify alien biology. The computer's voice came through, soft and metallic. "Unknown species. Oxygen compatible. Severe blood loss detected." Ryan pulled off his gloves and got to work. His hands were steady, but his heart wasn't. He wrapped her wounds, cleaned the cuts, sealed the burns. Every motion felt like a quiet rebellion against the universe that wanted them to hate each other. Hours passed. When she finally woke again, her breathing was steady. She blinked at the ceiling, confusion and fear in her glowing eyes. Ryan was sitting near her, half asleep in a chair, a blanket over his shoulders. He looked exhausted but peaceful. She turned her head toward him, studying the lines on his face, the human wrinkles of someone who had seen too much war. He stirred and looked at her. "You're awake." She tried to sit up, wincing from pain. "Where am I?" "My ship," he said. "The Resolute." "You're safe." Her expression hardened. "You should have left me to die," he shrugged. "Yeah, probably. But that's not really my style." She glared at him for a long moment. "You're a fool," he smiled faintly. "You're not the first to say that." The silence between them stretched, heavy but not cold. The hum of the ship filled the air. Finally, she whispered, "My name is Tirasha." Ryan nodded. Ryan Holt. Their eyes met briefly and something unspoken passed between them. A strange connection born from chaos. He stood, checking her bandages. She flinched again. "Don't touch me," she said quickly. Ryan sighed, his voice calm and kind. "Then heal faster. Saves me the trouble." For a second she didn't know whether to be angry or amused. When he left the room, Tirasha looked around quietly. She expected hatred, imprisonment, maybe interrogation. Instead, she saw clean sheets, medical supplies, and a small light shining gently above her bed. For the first time in her life, she wondered if humans were really what her people had always claimed, and somewhere deep inside her, beneath the pride, the pain, and the fear, she felt something strange, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. That night, as Ryan sat in the cockpit staring at the stars, he whispered to himself. She said, "Don't touch me." He smiled faintly, remembering her voice, the fear in her tone, and the fire in her eyes. "And I did anyway." He didn't know why. Maybe it was duty. Maybe mercy. Or maybe, just maybe, it was something more human than war could ever destroy. The hum of the ship was the only sound in the medbay. Tirasha lay still on the bed, staring at the ceiling made of human steel. The air smelled strange, too clean, too dry. Every time she blinked, she saw flashes of the crash again. The explosion, the fire, the sound of her people screaming. And then, him, the human who carried her out when everything burned. Her body ached with pain, but what hurt most was her pride. She was a Zorath commander, a leader, trained to die before showing weakness. And yet here she was, alive only because a human refused to leave her behind. The door opened with a hiss. She turned her head sharply. Ryan entered, wearing a dark jacket with a faint tear on the shoulder. He was carrying a tray. Steam rose from a small bowl of soup. He placed it on the table beside her bed and looked at her quietly. "You need food," he said. She frowned. "Do you feed all your enemies human?" Ryan shrugged lightly. "Only the hungry ones," her eyes narrowed. "Why?" He leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "Because starving someone isn't peace. It's just another kind of cruelty." For a moment she said nothing. She just watched him, trying to understand him. Everything about him was wrong. His calmness, his patience, the way he didn't treat her like a monster. It confused her. It made her angry. When he reached out to check the bandage on her arm, she flinched back sharply. "Don't touch me," she hissed. Ryan froze for a second, then nodded slowly. "All right. No touching." He took a step back, hands up in peace. Her voice softened slightly. "You humans are reckless. You don't understand what I am." He tilted his head. "Then tell me." She turned her face away. "I don't speak with prisoners." "Good thing you're not one," he replied gently. She looked at him in surprise. "I am your enemy." "Maybe," he said. "But I don't take enemies. Just guests." The words were simple, but they hit her harder than she expected. Hours passed. Ryan left her to rest. The lights dimmed to soft blue, but sleep didn't come easily. Tirasha sat up slowly, her body trembling from weakness. She touched the bandages around her arms and legs. Human fabric, human care. Her mind screamed that it was wrong, she should hate him. Her kind had fought the humans for generations. They were destroyers, animals driven by greed and chaos. That's what she was taught. That's what she believed. But then she remembered how he had carried her through fire, his body shaking from exhaustion, yet still refusing to stop. Why? She whispered to herself. Why would a human save a Zorath? There was no answer, only the steady hum of the ship's heart. Later she heard his voice again, soft, almost singing. She looked toward the corner of the medbay where he sat repairing a metal panel. He was humming an old Earth tune, low and broken. His voice wasn't beautiful, but it was... "Warm, you sing?" she asked quietly. He looked up, surprised. Yeah, sometimes. Why? Because silence gets heavy, he said with a faint smile. And songs help me forget what I've lost. Tarasha didn't reply. She just watched him. Something about his words stayed in her heart long after the sound faded. The next day, Ryan returned with a data pad. He placed it on the table and said, "Your ship's data core survived the crash. Thought you might want to look." Her eyes widened slightly. "You recovered it?" He nodded. "Couldn't read it, though. Different tech." She stared at the pad, her hands shaking as she touched it. On that small device were the last voices of her crew, her family. Her throat tightened. "Thank you," she said softly, almost whispering. Ryan looked at her for a moment, then said quietly, "I lost mine too." Their eyes met again. In that single shared look, two enemies found a small piece of understanding. Days turned into quiet routines. Ryan brought her food, checked her vitals, and repaired parts of the ship. Sometimes he would talk about the stars, how he'd once dreamed of exploring, not fighting. Tarasha would listen, pretending not to care. But she did. She told him about her home world, how its skies shimmered with twin moons, and how the air smelled like rain even in summer. "You'd like it," she said one evening. "Maybe one day," he replied, smiling faintly, "if your people don't shoot me first." For the first time she laughed, a soft, strange laugh that surprised even her. It felt human. But even peace has limits. One night, the ship's sensors beeped softly. Ryan checked the monitor and froze. A Zorath patrol ship was approaching the system. He turned to Tarasha. "Your people are near. They'll scan this moon soon." Her face went pale. "If they find me here with you, they'll kill you on sight." He nodded. "Yeah, I figured." "You must leave," she said. "If they sense human tech, they'll destroy you." Ryan leaned against the console, calm but determined. "Not without you." Her eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "I didn't pull you out of a burning ship to throw you back into one," he said softly. "We're getting you somewhere safe." "You would risk your life for me?" He smiled faintly. "I already did." She stared at him, her voice trembling. "Why? What are you trying to prove?" "Nothing," he said. "I just don't want another grave on my conscience." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not a soldier, not even one of her own kind. As he prepared the ship for takeoff, Tarasha sat in silence, clutching the data pad with her crew's memory. For the first time since she was born, she didn't feel like a commander. She felt like a person, fragile, lost, and afraid. Ryan walked past her, brushing a cable out of the way. Their arms almost touched. She tensed instantly. He paused, noticing. "Sorry," he said quietly, giving her space. Her heart beat fast for no reason she understood. She looked away, whispering, "I told you, don't touch me." He gave a small smile. "Yeah, I remember." And then he walked away, leaving her with a heart full of questions she never wanted to ask. That night, she couldn't sleep again. The ship rocked gently in orbit, lights dim. She looked toward the door where he had gone. Something about that human, his calmness, his eyes, the way he smiled even after losing everything, broke the iron wall around her soul. She whispered into the empty air, "Why can't I hate you?" No answer came, just the quiet hum of the Resolute, a ship where for the first time in her life, a Zorath and a human shared the same silence without war. Days passed slowly on the Resolute. The ship drifted quietly through empty space, far from human patrols and Zorath fleets. Inside its metal walls, two enemies lived under the same roof, a human captain and a wounded alien commander. Ryan repaired the engines during the day, and Tarasha watched him from the medbay window. She said little, but she saw how his hands shook from exhaustion, how he winced whenever old wounds ached. He never complained, he never asked for help. Sometimes she wondered if all humans were this stubborn, or just him. When he came to check her condition, she sat straight. proud, pretending not to care. But inside, she waited for those moments. It was strange. The silence between them no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a fragile bridge slowly forming. One morning, she found the courage to speak first. "Human," she called, her voice uncertain. Rian turned, wiping oil from his hands. "Yeah?" She hesitated, then asked, "Why do you fight this war?" He froze for a second, surprised. "That's a big question." "I want an answer," she said softly. "Your people burn worlds. Ours fight to defend them, but you don't seem like one who enjoys destruction." Ryan leaned against the wall, thinking. His eyes looked distant, tired. "I don't," he said quietly. "But I fight because someone has to. Because if we stop, we lose everything we love." He looked up at her. "Why do you fight?" Her gaze dropped. "Because it's what I was born to do." Ryan shook his head. "That's not a reason, that's a cage." She looked at him, startled by his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Her commanders always said duty above all. Her people taught her that questioning was weakness. But here was a human, her enemy, telling her that she was more than what her rank or blood demanded. She didn't know whether to feel anger or freedom. Later that day, Ryan brought her a small object, a metal cube with lights flickering softly. "What is this?" she asked. "It's a translator," he said. "You'll need it when you can walk again. Helps with human communication." She frowned. "You think I'll be staying with your kind?" He smiled faintly. "I think you'll need choices." "Choices." She whispered the word like it was foreign. "We don't have those." "Then maybe it's time you did." She stared at him, unsure what to say. The way he spoke made her chest feel tight. She was a soldier, not meant to feel anything but duty and loyalty. But this human, he spoke like he could see straight into her heart. That night, while he worked in the engine room, she limped down the corridor, ignoring the pain in her leg. She stood quietly at the doorway, watching him fix a broken conduit. The air smelled like oil and smoke, and his face was lit by the soft glow of welding light. "Why don't you sleep?" she asked. He looked up and smiled tiredly. "Because the engines don't fix themselves." "You could rest." "I could," he said, "but then we'd be stranded, and I promised I'd get you somewhere safe." She tilted her head. "You promised to your enemy?" Ryan chuckled softly. "Maybe I'm bad at following the rules." For a moment, her lips curved, almost a smile. "You are strange, human." He wiped his hands and looked at her with gentle eyes. "And you're still standing, Commander, that's impressive." Her chest warmed at his words. She didn't remember the last time someone said something kind to her. Not out of respect, but sincerity. As days turned into weeks, the medbay became a place of long talks and slow healing. Tarasha told him stories of her world, of vast crystal plains that shimmered like glass, of forests that glowed with soft blue fire at night. She spoke of her people proud and silent, and of the queen who ruled with iron strength. Ryan listened quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes sad. In return, he told her about Earth, about oceans that roared like thunder, cities that touched the clouds, and children who still played under real sunlight. "Your world sounds alive," she said softly. "It is," he replied. "But we keep killing pieces of it. We always find new wars to fight." "Maybe we are not so different," she said. He looked at her for a long time. "Maybe not." One evening, Ryan brought her a small flower, artificial, made from tiny circuits and metal petals. He placed it beside her bed. "What is this?" she asked. "A gift," he said simply, her brow furrowed. "We don't exchange gifts in Zorath culture." "Then consider it a human habit." She touched it gently. It was warm, faintly humming with power. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Rian smiled. "Made it from spare parts. Guess even broken things can be turned into something nice." She looked at him then, really looked. His face was tired, marked by scars and loss, yet his eyes held kindness, stubborn and bright. And in that moment she understood something strange. This human carried pain like armor, but instead of letting it make him cruel, he turned it into compassion. It scared her, because she didn't know how to face someone like that. Later that night, she couldn't sleep again. She stood by the window watching the stars drift by. Her reflection glowed faintly against the glass. Silver skin, glowing eyes, sharp features. A warrior. A weapon. She whispered, "Who am I now?" A voice came from behind her. "Someone who's alive." She turned. Ryan was standing at the doorway, arms crossed, a faint smile on his lips. "You should rest," he said. "I can't," she replied softly. "My dreams. They show me the crash. My crew dying." He stepped closer but stopped at a respectful distance. "I see my crew too. Every night." Her eyes glistened faintly. "How do you bear it?" "I don't," he said quietly. "I just keep going." The honesty in his voice broke something inside her. She looked away quickly. "You shouldn't be kind to me, Ryan Holt. I am your enemy." He smiled sadly. "No, you're just someone who needed help." For a long time she didn't move. Then she whispered, almost trembling, "Don't touch me, human." He smiled gently. "Don't worry, I won't." But his eyes said something else. Not pity, not desire, just deep human understanding. And that was harder to bear than touch. The days that followed were quiet but warm. She began to walk again, slowly. Rian taught her how to read human maps, how to fix small circuits, even how to drink coffee without making a face. Sometimes they argued, about war, about peace, about who was right, who was. But even in anger they respected each other. One night she said softly, "If our worlds meet again, I'll have to stand against you." He nodded. "Then I'll just have to make sure our worlds never fight again." She didn't answer, but her heart trembled, because for the first time in her life, she didn't want to fight. That night, as the ship floated through the quiet dark, two lost souls sat together under the same stars, a human and an alien. Enemies, yes, but also something else, something fragile, something real. And neither of them realized that the universe had already changed a little, simply because they dared to talk. The stars outside the Resolute were calm, but Rian's heart was not. The radar showed movement, unfamiliar signals growing stronger each hour. They weren't human. They were Zorath. He stared at the blinking lights on the screen, jaw tight. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. In the medbay, Tarasha was resting. Her skin had healed, her strength returned. She could walk now, slow but steady. For days she had started to feel safe, almost peaceful. But when she saw his face as he entered the room, she knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Ryan hesitated. "Your people," he said. "A fleet. They're sweeping this system." Her body tensed. "How close?" "Close enough to find us within hours." She stood up immediately. "Then you must leave now." Ryan frowned. "And what about you?" Her voice hardened. "If they find you with me, they'll kill you without hesitation." "You can't stay," he shook his head. "Not happening. I'm not leaving you here." "You don't understand," she said firmly, stepping toward him. "If they capture you, they will make you suffer. They will tear your mind apart to learn your military secrets. You'll die screaming, human." Ryan looked into her glowing eyes, calm but unyielding. "Then I'll die knowing I didn't abandon someone I saved." She froze. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest. "Why are you like this?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much about someone who should be your enemy?" He smiled faintly. "Because you stopped being my enemy the moment you trusted me enough to ask that question." Her breath caught. For a second she looked away, trying to hide the emotion in her face. "You fool," she muttered. "You don't even know what saving me could cost you." Ryan walked to the control panel, typing fast. The ship's old engines roared back to life. The floor vibrated under their feet. "We have two options," he said. "We can hide in the asteroid field or break orbit and try to outrun them." "They will sense the engine heat," she replied quickly. "They'll find us either way." He smiled. That same calm, reckless smile that had both infuriated and amazed her since the day they met. Good, he said. Let's make them work for it. The Zorath fleet grew closer. Tirasha could feel it. The hum of their energy waves, the faint signal of her people calling out into the void. Her hand trembled. Her heart told her she belonged with them. Her mind told her she should go, but her soul whispered something else entirely. Ryan moved beside her, adjusting the controls. There's a small shuttle docked below deck, he said quietly. You'll use it to get back to your fleet. Her eyes snapped toward him. What? He didn't meet her gaze. It's the only way. If I run, they'll chase me. But if they find you alive, they'll take you back. They'll believe you were the survivor of a crash. Her hands clenched into fists. You think I'll let you stay and die here? He looked at her with soft eyes. You don't have a choice. Someone has to distract them. Tirasha took a step closer. No, I will not let you throw your life away for me. Ryan smiled gently. You already said that once, when I carried you out of that wreck. And I didn't listen then either. Her throat tightened. You stubborn human. He chuckled. It's one of our best qualities. The ship shook suddenly as a blast wave hit nearby. Alarms blared. The red emergency lights painted their faces in harsh color. They found us, Rian said quietly. Tirasha felt her breath catch. The radar showed dozens of ships closing in. The Zorath fleet was massive. They won't stop, she said. If you try to fight, I'm not fighting, he interrupted. Just keeping them busy. He turned to her, eyes steady, voice calm. You're their commander, right? You can end this war someday, but you have to live to do it. She stared at him in disbelief. You're asking me to abandon you? I'm asking you to make it worth something. Her voice broke. I can't. Yes, you can, he said softly. You're stronger than you think. He guided her to the shuttle bay. The sound of explosions grew louder. Metal groaned. The ship was falling apart. He opened the shuttle door, the dim light shining inside. Tirasha stood there, trembling. Ryan, he smiled faintly. You'll be safe there. Once you're far enough, send a signal. They'll find you. Her voice was shaking. You don't even know what they'll do to you when they arrive. Yeah, he said. I've got an idea. Tears welled in her eyes. Something she didn't even know her kind could still do. You saved me once. Let me save you now. He shook his head. You already did. She looked at him, her heart twisting painfully. I told you not to touch me, she whispered. He stepped closer, gently brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. And I told you I don't listen well. Her breath caught. The warmth of his touch burned through every layer of pride and fear she had ever known. Please, she whispered. Don't do this, but he only smiled, eyes soft. It's okay. You'll make it matter. And with one final push, he pressed the control panel. The shuttle door closed between them. Inside the small craft, Tirasha screamed his name, her fists pounding against the glass. Through the window, she saw him standing there, calm, strong, surrounded by sparks and fire. The shuttle's engines roared, lifting off as the Resolute began to crumble. Rian watched her ship vanish into the stars. He whispered to himself, Goodbye, Commander. The next blast hit moments later. Light filled the cockpit. The sound was deafening, and then silence. Hours later, the Zorath fleet found a destroyed human vessel drifting among debris. No life signs. No trace of survivors. Tirasha stood on her flagship, watching the wreck through the viewing glass. Her hands trembled as she whispered, He saved me. Her second in command, unaware of her truth, bowed. A miracle you survived, Commander. The humans showed no mercy. Tirasha's eyes burned with hidden tears. Not all humans, she whispered. Not him. That night, alone in her quarters, she placed a small human flower on her desk, the one he had given her, its petals still humming faintly with power. She closed her eyes and whispered into the silence. You broke every rule of my people. You touched me when no one dared, and you taught me that not every enemy is evil. The stars outside shimmered softly. Somewhere in the darkness she imagined his voice, calm, warm, human. And for the first time in years, Tirasha cried. Not for her people, not for her war, but for the man who smiled when she told him not to. 5 years had passed. 5 long years since the Resolute had vanished in a storm of fire and light. For the galaxy, It was just another small incident in a war filled with countless battles. But for Tarasha, the Queen of Zorath, it was a wound that never healed. Every night, she still dreamed of him, the human who saved her life, the man who smiled when she told him not to touch her. His face haunted her. His voice lingered like a ghost in the silence of her palace. "You'll make it matter." And she did. After she returned, the Zorath Council had questioned her endlessly. How did you survive? Did the humans capture you? What did they do to you? She had lied to all of them. She said she escaped on her own, drifting until the fleet found her. She hid every detail about him, about Ryan, because she knew what they would have done if they learned the truth. They would have called him a monster, a threat, a weakness in her heart. Instead, she used the memory of him to do something greater. Tarasha ended the war. It took years, careful negotiations, secret meetings, and endless sacrifice. But she did it. She convinced the Zorath and the Terran humans to sign peace. No one knew why she pushed so hard for it. No one knew why the cold Queen of Zorath suddenly spoke of mercy and understanding. But Rian would have known. That night, she stood on her palace balcony. The twin moons shone on her silver skin, soft light reflecting off her armor. Her guards bowed as she passed, but she barely noticed she had become a legend, the queen, who ended the endless war. But peace felt hollow. Every victory speech, every celebration, every smiling diplomat, they all felt meaningless because one man wasn't there to see it. Far away, on a quiet colony world at the edge of the Orion Belt, a man walked through a dusty marketplace. His clothes were simple, his hair a little longer now, his eyes older. It was Ryan, he was alive. The explosion hadn't killed him, only destroyed his ship. He had drifted in space for days before a scavenger crew found him. His body had been broken, his lungs burned, but his will to live was stronger than death itself. He never returned to the military. He vanished from records, hiding among colonists, repairing machines and teaching children how to build small robots. Sometimes, when the nights were quiet and the stars looked a certain way, he remembered her, her glowing eyes, her trembling voice, her whispered plea. "Don't do this." He smiled sadly each time. "You're probably a queen by now," he would whisper. "You always looked like one." One evening, as Ryan sat outside fixing a broken drone, a strange ship appeared in the sky, silver and curved, unlike any human design. People ran in fear. Some shouted, "Zorath! It's the aliens!" But Ryan stood still, his eyes narrowing. Something deep in his chest told him it wasn't an invasion. It was something else. The ship landed just outside the colony, sending dust into the air. Its doors opened, and there she was. Tarasha stepped down the ramp, tall and graceful, her silver hair flowing in the wind. Her armor gleamed like liquid light. Ryan froze. His heart stopped. It had been 5 years. 5 long, impossible years, but she was real, standing right there. People around him backed away, whispering, staring in awe. The alien queen ignored them all. Her golden eyes searched the crowd. Until they found him, for a moment neither of them moved. The wind blew softly. The sun dipped behind the hills. Then slowly she walked toward him. He whispered half to himself, "No way." When she stopped just a few feet away, her voice was quiet, but strong. "You're alive." Rian gave a small smile. "Yeah, guess I'm hard to kill." Her lips trembled slightly, something like a laugh escaping her. "You always were." He looked at her closely, the same eyes, the same quiet strength. "You look different, royal," she nodded. "Queen now. They call me Tarasha the Merciful." He raised a brow. "You, merciful?" She smiled faintly. "You would be surprised what humans can inspire." He laughed softly. "You ended it, didn't you?" "The war." Her eyes softened. "Yes, for you." The words hit him like a blade. His smile faded. "For me?" Tarasha stepped closer. "You showed me what it means to care for someone who isn't like you. I carried that with me. Every time they told me to hate, I remembered your face." Rian looked down, emotion catching in his throat. "I didn't save you for this, I just didn't want to lose you." She reached out slowly, and her hand trembling slightly. "You once told me you don't listen well." He smiled gently. "Still true." For a long moment they just stood there, the human and the alien queen, staring at each other under the soft evening light. Finally she whispered, 5 years I searched for you. Every record said you died. Almost did, he replied quietly. But guess I had a reason to hold on. Her eyes glimmered with tears. And what reason was that? He smiled faintly. You told me not to touch you. She blinked in confusion. He stepped forward, closing the last bit of space between them. So I thought maybe one day I'd get the chance to do it again. Her breath caught. The air between them felt alive, heavy with memory, pain, and hope. When his hand rose, slow and gentle, she didn't move away this time. His fingers brushed her cheek. Warm against cool skin, her eyes closed. A single tear rolled down. Rian, she whispered. Yeah? She opened her eyes, glowing gold in the fading light. Don't stop. The people around them watched silently, unsure whether to fear or to believe what they saw. A human and a Zorath queen, standing together like they had always belonged. Tirasha smiled softly through her tears. Do you know what they will say when they see this? He nodded. Yeah, that the war's really over. For the first time in years. She laughed, a real quiet laugh full of life. And when he smiled back, it was the same old smile, the one that broke every rule, the one that said he didn't listen when she told him not to touch her. That night, when the stars came out, Tirasha stood beside him, looking at the sky. 5 years ago, I thought I'd never see you again, she said softly. He looked up too. 5 years ago, I thought I'd never touch the stars again. She turned to him, her voice trembling with something she couldn't hide. And now? He met her gaze, eyes warm. Now I think maybe the stars aren't so far away. For a moment, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. He didn't say a word, he just smiled and let her. Because sometimes words weren't needed. Sometimes, all that mattered was a touch. The Zorath Palace stood like a living mountain of silver crystal, its walls humming with power, its towers stretching into the clouds. The great hall glowed with a soft blue light, filled with hundreds of alien voices. And in the center of it all stood Ryan, the only human to ever walk those sacred halls. He didn't wear armor, only simple clothes. Yet his presence drew every eye. Some stared in curiosity, others in hatred. At the far end of the hall sat the High Council of Zorath, ancient beings wrapped in light and shadow. And beside them, standing tall and calm, was Queen Tirasha. Her heart was steady on the outside. But inside she was shaking, because she knew what this meeting truly was. It was not a welcome. It was a test. A tall counselor spoke first, his voice deep and cold. You bring a human into our heart, my queen, into the sacred place of Zorath. Do you not remember what their kind has done? Tirasha met his gaze without fear. I remember. I also remember what this one did. He saved my life. Murmurs echoed through the hall. Another counselor hissed, Saved you? Or used you? Ryan lifted his head. I didn't use anyone, he said quietly. I just did what was right. The hall went silent. His voice, soft but strong, carried across the chamber like a calm wind through metal. The oldest of the council leaned forward. And what is right, human? Ryan took a slow breath. Doing the thing that costs you, even when no one will ever thank you for it. The old one studied him, eyes glowing. Strange words. For a species known for greed and violence, Rian smiled faintly. Yeah, we have those too. But sometimes, we have something else. He turned slightly, his gaze finding Tirasha. Something worth dying for. The words hit the queen like a blade and a balm at once. For 5 years she had led her people, buried in duty and silence. But in one sentence he reminded her why she fought so hard for peace. The council, however, did not see it that way. One of the generals slammed a metal fist against the floor. He cannot stay here. He's a human soldier, a spy. We should erase him before his kind learns our secrets. The chamber roared with agreement. Voices rose, angry and harsh. Ryan stood still, silent, letting them speak. His calm only made them angrier. Finally, Tirasha raised her hand. The hall fell silent. Enough, she said. You speak of fear, not wisdom. I will not allow this assembly to act like frightened children. The general growled. He will bring ruin to you. Tirasha's voice cut through the air like thunder. He brought life to me. Her words echoed in the silence that followed. Rian looked at her, his eyes soft with both gratitude and pain. He didn't want her to fight for him, but she always did. After the meeting, Tarasha walked alone through the crystal corridors, her silver cloak trailing behind her. She was angry, not at them, but at herself. She had dreamed of peace, of bringing a human here to show unity. But all she had done was awaken the old wounds of her people. Then she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey," Ryan said softly. "You stormed out faster than I could follow." She didn't turn. "You shouldn't have spoken," she said coldly. "They see confidence as defiance." He smiled faintly. "Then they saw me exactly right." She spun around, her eyes flashing. "You don't understand the danger you're in, Ryan. They want a reason to destroy you." He met her gaze calmly. "And you're the only reason they haven't." That silenced her. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the palace walls. Ryan took a small step closer. "Why did you bring me here, Tarasha?" "Really?" She looked away, her voice quiet. "Because I was tired of ghosts. I wanted to see if you were real. Or just a memory." He smiled gently. "I'm real." Her eyes shimmered faintly. Too real. And too dangerous. That night she called for a private meeting in her chambers. Only Rian was allowed inside. The room glowed with soft golden light. Outside the windows, the twin moons floated over the silver city. Tarasha stood by the window, her hands clasped behind her back. "They will vote tomorrow," she said. "If the council decides you are a threat, I won't be able to stop them." Ryan nodded slowly. "Then I guess I should leave before they vote." Her voice trembled slightly. "If you run, they'll see it as guilt. If you stay, they'll see it as pride. Either way, you lose," he chuckled softly. "Story of my life." That made her turn. Her eyes softened. "You always laugh even when everything is falling apart." He shrugged lightly. "Maybe that's how humans survive." Tarasha walked closer, stopping only a step away. "And if you don't survive this time?" He looked into her eyes, calm as ever. "Then at least I'll die where I was meant to be." Her breath caught. "And where is that?" "Beside you." For a moment neither of them spoke. The space between them was filled with memories of fire, of loss, of one touch that changed everything. She looked at him, the one being who had defied death and distance to stand before her again. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered. He smiled softly. "You said that 5 years ago, too. And you didn't listen then either," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Guess I never will," he whispered. Then he reached out. Slow. Careful. For a heartbeat, she froze. Her body remembered the first time he touched her. That forbidden warmth, that shock of emotion. But this time, she didn't say, "Don't." She didn't step back. She let his hand rest against her cheek, soft and steady. The world outside the window fell silent. Time itself seemed to stop. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "You risk everything for a moment like this?" He smiled. "For you? Every time." The next day came too quickly. The council gathered again. The air was heavy, tense. The queen stood at the front, her expression unreadable. Rayan stood beside her, calm and unflinching. The council's leader rose. "We have discussed. We have decided." Rian looked up. Tarasha didn't breathe. "The human will not be executed," the leader said finally, "but he will never leave the queen's side. If she chooses him, she takes responsibility for his fate." The hall erupted in whispers, some in anger, some in shock. Tarasha turned to Ryan. "They will watch you every second," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I've been in worse situations." She almost laughed. Almost. Then with calm pride, she turned to the council. "So be it. His life is mine to protect." As the crowd dispersed, Ryan leaned close and whispered, "Guess I'm officially your problem now." She smiled softly. "You've always been my problem, human." And though danger still waited, though the path ahead was uncertain, she felt something deep inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Because for the first time, the Queen of Zorath didn't feel alone. And when Ryan took her hand, gently, without asking, she didn't stop him, not this time. Peace never lasts forever, even under the calm silver sky of Zorath. Shadows still moved. Rumors spread of a rebellion. Zorath generals angry that their queen had allowed a human to live. Angry that she had fallen in love with one. For weeks, Tarasha had sensed it. The way her guards whispered behind her back. The way her council meetings grew colder. And then one night it began. Explosions shook the palace. Sirens blared through the city. Soldiers turned their weapons on the Queen's banners. The war wasn't over. It had simply been waiting to begin again. Tarasha stood at the balcony watching the city burn. Her heart pounded painfully. No, not again, she whispered. Ryan ran into the room, his face covered in dust and blood. The rebels are inside the palace. We have to move. She turned to him, eyes glowing with tears and rage. They're killing their own people, Ryan. My people. He grabbed her shoulders, firm but gentle. Then we stopped them, together. She hesitated, looking at him. There was no fear in his eyes. Only fire. The same fire she saw 5 years ago when he carried her from the wreck. She nodded. Then we fight. The palace corridors became a battlefield. Rian fought with nothing but a stolen Zorath blade, moving like a ghost between shadows. Tarasha fought beside him, her energy wings flaring like light-made flesh. They moved in perfect rhythm, human and alien. Two souls bound by something far stronger than war. Everywhere they went, soldiers froze. None had ever seen their queen fight like this. None had ever seen her defend a human with such fury, but the enemy was strong. The rebels had taken the power core, the great energy heart that kept the palace afloat. If it exploded, it would destroy the entire city. By the time Ryan and Tarasha reached the core chamber, the air was thick with heat and smoke. Sparks rained from the ceiling. At the center of the room stood General Vrax, the same man who once shouted in the council, demanding Rian's death. Now he held a plasma blade, his face twisted with hate. You ruined our honor, my queen, Vrax snarled. You let this creature poison your mind. You made us weak, Tarasha raised her weapon. No, Vrax, I made us free, he spat. Then die with your human! He lunged. The fight was brutal. Vrax was fast, faster than any human could follow. Ryan barely dodged his first strike. The blade missed him by inches, leaving a burn on his shirt. Tarasha countered with pure energy, her wings slashing through the air. Vrax deflected it easily, laughing. You've gone soft, queen. She struck again, harder, but he pushed her back, his power fueled by rage. Then Ryan moved. He leapt forward, slamming his body into Vrax's arm. The blade cut deep into his side. He grunted but didn't stop. Tarasha screamed his name. Vrax turned to finish him, but she was faster. She thrust her blade through his chest. Light burst from the wound. Vrax's scream echoed as he fell to his knees, eyes wide in disbelief. Traitor, he gasped. Then he was gone, turning to ash in the burning air. Tarasha ran to Ryan and caught him before he fell. Blood stained her hands. Ryan! No, 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 she whispered, pressing her hands against the wound. He smiled weakly. You always worry too much. Tears filled her golden eyes. Don't talk. Save your strength. He shook his head slowly. You have to stop the reactor. It's going critical. She looked toward the console. Energy spirals flickering, unstable. If I touch it, the blast will kill anyone nearby. He took her hand, squeezing it lightly. Then you should go, her voice broke. I'm not leaving you again. He smiled faintly. You said that before. And I meant it, she said through her tears. You came back to me once. You don't get to leave again. The console alarms grew louder. The countdown had begun. 1 minute to overload. Ryan tried to stand, groaning from the pain. Tarasha, listen. If we both stay, no one will live. You have to go. She shook her head, her voice trembling but firm. Then we die together. He stared at her. The proud queen, the woman who had once told him not to touch her, now holding him like the most precious thing in the universe. A small smile crossed his lips. You always were impossible. And you always ignored my orders, she said softly. He laughed weakly. Guess that makes us even. The countdown reached 20 seconds. She pulled him close, her forehead resting against his. If this is the end, she whispered, I'm glad I met you. He looked into her eyes. Hey, he said softly, smiling. It's not the end. It's just another beginning. Then he reached up, his hand trembling, and touched her face one last time. Her heart broke and healed in the same second. The light began to build, a storm of white energy. rising like a sun inside the palace. She could have escaped. She could have used her power to shield herself, but she didn't. She held him tighter. And when the explosion came, it was not destruction. It was light, pure and blinding, spreading through every corner of the city. When the people of Zorath looked up that night, they saw something miraculous. The burning palace didn't fall. It transformed. The explosion became a wave of golden energy that healed what was broken, that stopped the fighting and silenced the guns. And in that light, two figures stood. One human, one alien, holding each other. Then they were gone. Weeks later, the fires were gone and peace returned once more. The rebels were defeated. The queen's death became legend, but strange stories spread through the colonies. Some said they saw two travelers, a woman with silver hair and glowing eyes, and a man with a scar and a quiet smile, wandering the outer worlds, helping the lost. Some said they were ghosts. Others said they were something more, the living spirit of peace itself. In the ruins of the old palace, a single flower grew, a human flower, bright and blue. No one planted it. It simply appeared. And under the light of the twin moons, it swayed gently in the wind, glowing faintly, as if touched by something eternal. Somewhere among the stars, Ryan's voice could almost be heard. "You said don't touch me again," he whispered, laughing softly. "But I did anyway." And far away, a gentle voice answered, "I'm glad you did."